decentralized governance. That is exactly after the post-independence period, what happened to the decentralized governance in India. And also with some examples from Karnataka, I will be also from other states, I would like to articulate that during post-independence, if you compare this decentralized governance to colonial space, right from the Vedic, Mughal, and British period, and also to the recent status of constitutional status of seventh government. So that gives an idea how this decentralized governance, which is almost neglected area in our governance, has gained a lot of importance, momentum of late after the passing of 73rd Constitutional Amendment. So I have two parts of presentation. The first part talks about a bit of theoretical articulation for decentralized governance. Why decentralization is more important than centralization. I think that first part will be of more of theoretical, some perspectives, some normative aspects of decentralization. The second part highlights about this Constitutional 73rd Amendment, actually passed in April 24th, 1993. Even today, almost you have crossed 32 years. In spite of 32 years of journey, we still feel that the decentralization is yet to see that the day. Still, we see a lot of centralized process happening. So that we'll know that. That is my second part. So the first part, I will, PowerPoint is there. I have to enlarge it. Yeah. Sharing, huh?
The slides is sir.
Huh? Now
So
you can
slide is
see.
visible.
Now you can
So
see.
slide is visible. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, visible but not moving, sir.
Pardon?
Not moving, sir. No.
I will make it little. Now?
Now, okay, sir.
So this is the theoretical argument of decentralization. We all know that government is an institution which has the responsibility to provide public goods and physical infrastructure to the people. Public goods in terms of if you take road, drinking water, all services to people. Infrastructure and development of areas, regional areas. I think government has the responsibility to take welfare of the people and also the development of areas. But it has been argued recently in theory that in a centralized system, it is difficult to provide meet the demands of the people and also infrastructure. And they have been like to be very ineffective and inefficient in providing local services in a centralized governments. For instance, even if you take an example, the distance factor becomes very factor for this kind of. That is true. If you take this, for instance, if citizens living in different places, you take, for example, Karnataka, I'll give you, people living in Gulbarga, in the absence of decentralized government, so they have to look towards MLAs at the state level, MPs at the central level for their demands to be met. But people living in different spaces, that is areas, and also people have different tastes also. So the government has the responsibility to respond to the tastes and preferences of the people. That is most important, which is not possible in the centralized system of governance. So there is also a point that they have been argued in the economic theories that the government has to be consistent with the tastes and preferences for creating their demands. The argument that again they put is that the distance factor matters here. It is very nature would find it difficult to effectively do so because of its location far away from the people. For instance, people living in villages having the basic problems like drinking water, drainage, Anganwadi schools like that. For simple reasons, so they cannot come all the way to the state capitals or the central capital, like Delhi or Bangalore kind of thing. If it is West Bengal, you cannot go to Calcutta for everything. So the distance factor comes in the way of government and the people, if it is centralized system government. Similarly, even if the market fails also, so due to high cost of exclusion you bear is the people are excluded from the decentralized governance process. So naturally, the citizens find it very difficult to reveal their preferences, what they want exactly. So the Thai board in 1956 argues that in a centralized process, the provision of goods would have its limitations, that they argues. So pursuing these limitations associated with the central governments. So what is the remedy? That is, the remedy is in decentralization of the provision of these services was suggested as a solution for that. For instance, you know that ours is a federal government, we have a central government, state government, and local government. In the absence of local government, the central government or state government finds it very difficult to meet the demands of the people. So similarly, if you create a local government, I think local government which is close to the people, they can easily understand the problems of people and also accordingly prepare action plans based on the Gram Sabha meetings, all of this. The argument made by the theories like that, Armstrong, Buchanan, Thola, that the services are provided more efficiently by a large number of local governments than by the central governments. For instance, if you take Karnataka itself, so we have 5,958 Gram Panchayats out there. They are working in the local villages level. So they can take care of their problems of people. They can, because they are work closely with the people. So then if you assign the same responsibility to the state government, central government, they find it very difficult to meet the aspirations of the people. So that is a kind of theoretical argument they put that the centralized process is very difficult to meet the taste and preference of the people, and also very difficult for the development of rural areas. The same powers are given to local governments, so they are in a better position to take care of the problems of people like that. So there are three theories are there for that. The one is neoclassical public choice theory, provided by Russell and Nicholson. So they argue that, for instance, take for example your centralized marketing. You assume that in your area, so there is only one market, and to that market the residents go for to buy purchase. But irrespective of the quality of the product, irrespective of the nature of the product, it's very difficult for the people to choose a particular commodity. For instance, if you want a ripened tomato, so if it's not available, so it is only green tomatoes available, that means you have no choice because it's only single market. To buy your ripened tomatoes, you have to travel all the way to nearby township, which are 5-10 kilometers. You have no time, you have no spacious life. But what they argue that if there are more number of markets are there. For instance, today's I find number of markets around your residence. If you go to a particular shop, if you are not happy with that product, you move to the next shop. You take malls now. Malls are there, cities and all. So you have a choice. You go around the shopping till you get satisfied of the product that you purchase. So that's why they argue that if there are more number of providers are involved, so people have better options and better choices to buy their products. Similarly, they argue that for the public administration, there are more number of local government. It will be easy for the governments to satisfy the demands of the people like that. So that is one way of arguing that why decentralization. The second theory is about public finance and public administration. Theories developed by Maddick, Leonardo Marshall, Simon Rondinelli. They argue that the decentralized governments must have the autonomy to raise their own resources. That is called resource mobilization. And also they should have powers to utilize the resources raised by them so that they can make their own decisions. That is a theory they argue that means the local government must have autonomy to raise their own resources. For example, the Gram Panchayats in Karnataka or else in other states also. So they have been given powers to raise their own resources through levying taxes like that. on house tax also. The third theory that argues that the political economy theory, developed by Rondinelli, all these people, they argue that state cannot provide everything alone. The state needs some alternative arrangements, like both NGOs are there, people's participation are market is there. So they argue for the three things, that is state, market and civil society. If they have alternatives, it is easy for the government to meet the different tastes and people. So this is a more of cost-effective nature, because if you take example, if the work, if the state work at the Gram Panchayat level, people mobilization will be there, people also contribute their labor, people also contribute the donations, it becomes cost effectiveness. So that is kind of, they argue that this theory, state cannot alone take the responsibilities. That responsibility should be shared by other institutions like civil society or market, like that. What you call PPP model, public-private partnership model. So decentralization has three perspectives. One is political perspective. So they argue that if you want to have a ideal decentralization, so there is need to distribute powers territorially. For instance, we have three regions below the state, that is district, taluk or block or village. So they said the power should be distributed between these regions, that is district, block and village. By creating necessary political and administrative institutions. For example, now today we have Jilla Panchayats at the district level, Taluk Panchayats at the Taluk level or block level, and Gram Panchayats or village panchayats at the village level. So along with political institutions, we need to provide bureaucracy to function. So more importantly, they argue that the members of these institutions, that is Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayats and Gram Panchayats, should be directly elected by the people. The way you elect MLAs, MPs, similarly, the people should elect these members of these institutions through elections. The argument is that the decisions that are taken at these institutions are in democratic nature. So this kind of argument, the political perspective, they argue that, like Smith and all. The second is administrative perspective. That means they argue that if you have decentralized governments, like the Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayats, the responsibility should be transferred to them. I will come later in the 73rd, how this response transferred to this panchayats. The 29 functions have been transferred to this panchayats. And second, that they should also have powers to not only to plan their own activities, but also manage them. That is, they should have powers to prepare their own plans and also implement them. Otherwise, it will be centralized planning. If you want decentralized planning process, the planning powers should be with the panchayats, and also they should also prepare plans and also implement them. The third, more important, they should also have the powers to raise their own resources, raise and also allocate. For instance, the what we call own tax resources of Gram Panchayats are raised by the Gram Panchayat themselves. So, in case of emergencies crisis, they utilize that amount for the benefit of the villages or for the to repair some houses, all those things are there. The fourth important, if you have all these three responsibilities, power and planning powers, it becomes very easy for the local bodies to deliver their goods and services to the people around. That's the kind of argument put. The third perspective is economic perspective. This comes from the theories of public choice theory again. That means if you have more people's participation with the process, so there will be efficiency in the delivery of services. Also, it expand the consumer's choice. That's people's choice. People's choice are like if you take Gram Sabha meetings, Gram Sabha people demand of they want water, they want road, they want house, they want toilets, and they demand. That means people have choice to demand not only from the state government, out of the local governments, but most of the local governments, people have better options there. The third becomes cost effective. That is the participation of people and NGOs. The implementing process becomes more cost effective. That means you can the panchayats can utilize locally available resources. You have forest, you have mining, everything are there. If they are given powers to them, I think panchayats can utilize their own resources for the construction of houses, road, all those buildings. So what happens? The outcomes are becomes more efficient, more optimal, and appropriate, and also more importantly, satisfactory for the people who are elected them for the government. So these three perspectives provides a lot of base for the even 70th government also that they come later. If it comes to decentralization, I think we have four types of decentralization in our literature. One is called deconcentration. Deconcentration is not fully decentralized. I think decentralization up to 20 to 30%. They say that handing of some amount of authority or responsibility to local government. Take, for example, the NREGA. The NREGA program, earlier IRDP, all central sponsored programs, flagship programs, are prepared by the central government. They also provide money. They also provide guidelines to it. So they only ask local bodies like panchayats, taluk jilla panchayats to implement the programs of the central government. Similarly, state government also have their own programs, so they will give the responsibility to the local bodies to implement them. But we do not want that kind of decentralization. That will come through. That means what we mean by deconcentration is that giving some partial powers to the local levels to implement the programs of the central state government. The second, shifting of workload from centrally located officers. So they create their own offices also sometimes by central government to implement the program. And some discretion to field staff. For instance, if you take NREGA, the beneficiaries of the all central state government are identified with the in Gram Sabha. Some power, some discretion at the field level to decide about the projects and the way they implement and all. But the concept of the project, the money of the project, everything is decided at the central level. That is we call deconcentration. The next is delegation. I think this is up to almost, 70 to 80% of decentralization. That is transferring specially defined functions or to organizations. And delegation of some responsibilities to public corporations. And the third is organizations indirectly control. Take, for example, your KSRTC, Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation, your BESCOM, your KMF, Karnataka Milk Federation. All these directors are created by the government. So they're almost parallel bodies to the government. But they are given a lot of powers to these bodies, independent powers. But when it comes to the crucial power of, for example, KMF, if they want to raise the price of the milk, they cannot raise it. So that will refer to the government. Only after the approval of the cabinet, I think they will decide about the rate. Similarly, KSRTC cannot increase the fares of the buses. So they can only propose to the government that you have to raise there, but they cannot decide about that. Ultimately, state controls indirectly that, although they function independent of state governments, but some decisions are with the state government decision about. So we call it as delegation. You delegate powers and responsibilities to the bodies created by the state government. The third devolution is our, we want this kind of powers transfer. We call devolution. That means the local governments that we have Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayats, Gram Panchayats, and in urban areas, municipalities, corporations, we feel that they should be autonomous and independent and are legally created. I think now they are clearly created through seventh government. But if you want the 100% evolution, decentralization, we need the local government should be made autonomous and independent. And the second point is that we should strengthen them, not politically, administratively, and financially. That means politically, you create institutions, make them function, give them a lot of powers, administrative also, and financial lot of sources should be given. That means if you give this kind of thing, the activities are substantially outside the direct control state government. So in real decentralization, we expect that, theory expect that The the higher governments like central government, state government are kept away from the, so they cannot control these institutions that way. In fact, in Karnataka, we had that kind of structure into 1987, where you have Jilla Parishads and Mandal Panchayats. You must be knowing the Karnataka people during Ramakrishna Hegde, that Abdul Ranjit Saab time. So they gave a lot of powers to the Jilla Parishads and Mandal Panchayats. Mandal Panchayat, the Jilla Parishad, the Adhyaksha was equivalent to state minister rank also. He was given a lot of powers, administrative powers. Even the IAS officers used to write their confidential reports about the IAS officers. They are they are powers to transfer high school teachers also, recruit and transfer teachers. But slowly they were withdrawn. That is a different issue. But we want local governments, Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, must have independent powers, which should not be controlled by the state government. But that doesn't happen in practice. But theoretically, you argue that. So they are the ideal. That means 100% decentralization, provided these institutions are made autonomous and given powers. The fourth type is privatization. That means I already argued that the state cannot handle everything alone. So there is need to transfer some functions as the research NGOs. For example, in the Bangalore itself, I will say that we have 198 wards are there. So all these wards have in the solid waste management, that is the collection of waste and disposal, are given to the private sector NGOs. I think most of the functions have been given to private sector nowadays. Construction, buildings, airport construction, all these things are given to private. That means there is need to privatize certain services. Even there's a demand for privatizing drinking water supply, but that yet to take place, because there are demerits in that, because if you privatize drinking water, the charges will be more. The corporation water, you pay only 200 rupees. If it is privatized, we have to pay 1,000 rupees like that. So that's some services are not given to private people, but some responsibility have given now. That means in the administration, the governance, we have state, we have corporate, we also have NGOs. So that is there is need to privatize certain delivery of the research goods for the efficient distribution there. That means we have 4 types of decentralization, that is deconcentration, delegation, devolution, and privatization. So you can apply it accordingly to the situation. If you make a study of any institution, organizations from a research angle, for PhD, all those things, I think these theoretical concepts and concepts understanding and the forms should be very useful to make a case for why your study is not able to produce the desired results because of certain factors that are available within the system itself. So that means that based on this theory and perspectives, we bring out a normative model of decentralization. How a decentralization should be like that. So that we have some 6 points. That is one, there should be access to decision making to all those sections. So nowadays we have in panchayats the members elected from SC/ST, women, OBC. So we argue that the benefits of development should reach to all sections of society, so especially the socially disadvantaged groups of society, because we say that the decisions which are likely affected by such decisions, they should also be part of the decision-making process. Secondly, you argue that these institutions should enjoy political and financial autonomy. That's more important. And both official and non-official members of these institutions should be accountable to people, because both the Adhyaksha, Upadhyaksha members and the officials, PDO, all these people, they should be accountable to the people for the decisions that they have taken. The fourth is the planning process must be carried out in an integrated area framework. I think so that resource allocation takes place like that. Now we have a district planning committee, district level. We have taluk panchayat planning committees. We have village panchayat planning committees out there. They all based on the Grama Sabha's suggestions and all. They prepare action plan, and this plan is integrated at the state level also. That is through what we call decentralized planning process, not top planning process. The fifth, the project implementation should be cost effective. I already mentioned, free from leakages. That is, once you involve people in the process, NGOs, I think there will be less leakage in the implementation of projects. More importantly, it will be cost effective. Ultimately, the planning process, that is decentralized planning process that takes at these levels, right from the Ward Sabha, Gram Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat, and through urban bodies and the DP district planning committees, the outcome, the process should be integrated, linked to the state level. So we have state planning departments, development are there. We have state level institutions are there. So they will prepare an entire plan or budget for the entire state. I think based on this normative framework, one would expect theoretically or ideally that the decentralization as a is a solution to the problems that are circumventing around the village development. Now we come to the again the outcome. Visions are there. Some visions we need to understand. Visions of decentralization. One is to attain decentralized and participatory local government through panchayat Raj institution. The second is to empower and enable and accountable PRAs to ensure inclusive development. That means include all the society, SC, ST, OBC, women in the development process. And if there is autonomy that we already argued, that means they should have autonomy in functionally, financially, and administratively. This is subsidiarity is very important. It means that what can be done best at a particular level should be done at the level alone, not at higher levels. For instance, for example, if the panchayat has the powers to implement or take care of midday meal, that should be done by only panchayat, not by the taluk panchayat, not by the jilla panchayat. That means what should be done. I think that needs a role clarity. That's the second one. Role clarity means we have a link document in panchayat. If you go to Jilla Panchayat in any district in the Karnataka, they have link document. This link document provides the detailed rules about Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Gram Panchayat, according to the rules. So the activities done by the Panchayat, Gram Panchayat, should be done by Gram Panchayat, should be done by Taluk Panchayat, should be done by Jilla Panchayat. So then only clarity will emerge. The link documents provides you the clarity exactly. So what is the role of Gram Panchayat with regard to road, with regard to school, with regard to health, everything they provide, education. So the third is complementarity. I think the functions of different types should not overlap, but be complementary to each other. They should, for instance, problem is that Karnataka, also line departments are there, like education, health, all those things. They always compete with the Jilla Panchayat. They are complementing the roles. I think this is the vision we are, and people's participation is most important in this. The next vision is people's participation, because these local bodies are created mainly to ensure the effective people's participation in the governance process. That is most important. And accountability. So there is need for accountability of elected members for this system, and more importantly, transparency. The people should have the right to information regarding every detail of administration that takes place at the local level. So these are the theoretical backdrop I'm putting. Now I come to this development that have taken place post-independent. Prior to that, I would like to give some briefly about the what happened in the ancient period, that is the pre-independence of it, colonial or this period. In fact, if you look into the history of local self-government in India, I think you come across several stages actually. So right from the self-sufficient and self-governing village communities that survived the rise and fall of empires in the past, to the modern legalized institutions of governance, that is until Seventh Third Amendment. That's kind of history they have. Very interesting history. If somebody wants to go through, we can study a lot of literature available. A lot of literature available. For instance, during time of Rig Veda, that is 1200 BC, evidences provide that self-governing village bodies were called as sabhas. So in the time these bodies became panchayats, there is council of 5 persons. That means they were functional institutions during the Vedic period. That's a that means we had some kind of village level bodies to take care of locally available problems. The second development was during Mughal period, actually. This is again, there is slowdown of self-governed villages. We are more into the casteism and feudalistic system of governance under Mughal. You know the Gowda period. Gowdas are there. Used to call Patel Gowdas, village headmen. So they used to control the administration. Only say a single person, solitary person should control. And slowly eroded the self-government in villages. The sabhas which were created during Vedic period slowly started eroding in the Mughal period. If a new class of feudal chiefs and revenue collectors, Jamindars, emerged between the ruler and the people. You can imagine your old, some 60, 70 years back, the village was ruled by the headman, Jamindar, not by any institution as such. So the people used to go to him, I think. So Jamindar, between the Sarkar government, Jamindar and people, that kind of institution, there were no people's institution during those periods. And so began the stagnation of and decline of self-government villages. With the introduction of these concepts, feudalistic system, Jamindar system, I think the village system slowly started, it's almost stagnated in the decline during medieval period. And if we come to the British period, I'm giving only very just snapshots that because of time constraint, just giving indication. You can further make some readings also. The panchayat had never been the priority of the British rulers. So they created a kind of creation of controlled local bodies. They want to have more control over these bodies, especially through collecting taxes. You must be knowing the Lagan. You might have seen the Lagan movie of Amir Khan. So that's this kind of thing. Only local bodies were there to collect taxes and give it to the British Empire. Then only during 1857, so they start thinking of giving some powers in terms of transferring responsibility of road construction and public works to local bodies. That is the initiation, British people. They have only two responsibilities, that is road maintenance and public works to local bodies. However, this compelled decentralization, we call it as a literature called compelled decentralization with respect to the municipal administration, but not through rural bodies, because Britishers were interested in urban level bodies, not with the village level bodies. So they also give some powers in 1857 to try minor offences and to resolve village disputes. You can remember the Panch Parmeshwar kind of thing. So they were all, the 5 members used to sit and discuss about village problems. They used to decide about disputes there itself. But they never restored the lost powers of the village community. What we had in Vedic period, which is almost missing during even British period also. Interestingly, in 1870, you might have heard this Lord Mayo's resolution, which brought some life to the decentralization. They talked about administrative efficiency in meeting people's demand. The first time they thought of giving some powers to the local institutions to meet the demands of people, and gave much importance to develop local body. Lord Ripon, in his famous resolution of locus of government in May 1882, recognized twin considerations for local body. That is, he thought these two things, that is administrative efficiency in the delivery of services and political education to the people. So he thought people should be educated politically. They should also participate in the electoral process on the governance. I think he realized that these two aspects, I think some amount of consideration was given to local bodies those days after the Lord Ripon's resolution. It is also talked about, Lord Ripon talked much about again urban institutions, towns. First time actually, a large majority of elected non-official members were presided by non-official. First time, I think, the British government introduced election of non-official members. Like we have panchayat members now. Those days, the municipalities of members were elected by the people and presided over by the non-official chairperson also, not official, non-official, again, Adhyaksha of the elected from among the members. The progress of local government was tardy, although it was some progress was there, but it was very slow, with half-hearted steps taken setting up municipal bodies. The more importantly for us, rural decentralization remained in a neglected area of administrative reform during British period. That's very, very concerning one for students of decentralization and students of Panchayat Raj. I think rural decentralization during British period remained a neglected area of administrative reform. Then came the Royal Commission in 1907 and the chairmanship of C.H. Abose recognized the importance of panchayats at the village level. First time now. You see how the history shapes panchayats. In 1907 only, I think C.H. Abose recognized. So there is need for village panchayats at the village level to solve their village level problems. The commission recommends that in order to associate the people with the local tasks of administration, the attempt should be made to constitute and develop village panchayats for the administration of local village affairs. In his commission recommend that there is need to associate people with the local task of administration. That's why he said that there is need to create or develop a village panchayat at the village level so that they themselves can administer their own local village problems. But the Montego Church reforms, they brought local self-government as a provincial subject. Again, it given to the government under the domain of Indian ministers in the provinces. So again, there is a slowdown of village panchayat. Due to organizational and fiscal constraints, the reform was unable to make panchayat institutions truly democratic and vibrant. Again, they had problem those days also. Even today, we talk about fiscal constraints, fiscal problems. Even those days also, they again problems of fiscal problems, and the reform that evolved by the British period could not make panchayats a vibrant institutions at the village level. But however, this kind of number of provisions, there was no large. By 1925, 8 provinces had passed Panchayat Acts and by 1926, 6 native states had also passed Panchayat Acts. As a result of that resolution, I think Habos resolution, so though in 1925, 8 provinces, so they could just pass the Panchayat bills like that. And by 26, 6 native states had also passed. Not only provinces, but also states also pass laws to constitute panchayats at the village level. So this is the outcome of our British period actually. In spite of all these committees such as Royal Commission Decentralization, Montego, all those things, a hierarchical administrative structure based on supervision and control. So in spite of creating this to local level, so there existed a administrative structure, what we call deconcentration. There's a lot of control was exercised by the higher princely states over the local bodies. The administrator became the focal point of rural governments. Now we can see now our Taluk Panchayat, there are no elections in Karnataka to Taluk Panchayat, Jilla Panchayat for the last 3.5 years. So they have appointed officials only the dominant situation. Like City Corporation Bangalore, no elections, administrator is there. So the outcome of British exercise that were not concerned with decentralized democracy, but were aiming for colonial objectives. So what we learn from the pre-independence period is that although efforts were there, but the efforts were not worthwhile efforts. So there have been a very half-hearted attempt by except Vedic period. I think all the regimes that we studied during Mughal, British, they hardly gave importance to the development of local body, that is panchayat in our constitution. So if you come to this post-independence development, as we all know that during the drafting of the constitution, there was a lot of discussion between Mahatma Gandhi's idea of Gram Swaraj, Ambedkar, there's a lot of opposition to create panchayats in the drafting of constitution. But the end result was very positive. That means the panchayat institutions were placed in the non-justiciable part of constitution. That is directives policy or Article 40. If you see that Article 40 of Constitution, it says that, it reads as that the state shall take steps to organize village panchayats and endow them with such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as units of self-government. The first time in the post-independence period, the Constitution, the Article 40 was created through directive principles policy, panchayat institution. But if we read this statement, states should take steps to organize village panchayats and endow them with such powers and authority as may be necessary. May is a problem. As may be necessary to enable them to function as units of government. But however, no worthwhile legislation was enacted either at central level or at state level to implement panchayats. Till almost 1957, I think panchayats were not in the framework of the central government. Then comes your Balwantrai Mehta counter, the important milestone in the decentralized rural governments. You should also understand during this phase, we had a community development program. In 1952, Government of India launched first time to cover entire country community development program. They gave a lot of money by creating projects actually to development projects at the block level. But unfortunately, I think the program was a total failure. So the program had a highly centralized program. The officials, the bureaucracy was a predominant role in the not only in framing the projects but also in implementing projects. So when the committee, that's why the central appointed is voluntary committee to look into this. Why committee failed miserably in creating the infrastructure in the rural areas. So that is they argue that there is need to create, the Mehta committee argued that there is need to create people's institutions at the Jilla level, block level, and village level. So that's why you say that the early establishment of bodies and devolution necessary as well. He said that the committee said that there is need to establish elected local bodies and devolve them necessary resources, powers, and authority. The argument is that so there is need to have people's bodies. The elected members should be there to run the local institution. The first time Balotra suggested. He argued that the basic unit of this decentralization should be block. That is Samiti. In the other state they call Samiti. In Karnataka we call Taluk. The students, teachers of Karnataka may know that we had Taluk development TDBs. Taluk development boards were there in the 1980s and all. So they were almost a very powerful Taluk level bodies of those days actually. I did my PhD doctorate on those institutions in 1980. He argued that Balwantari committee said that the basic unit of decentralization should be block. So it should be the unit of decentralization block, since the area of jurisdiction of the local body should neither be too large nor too small. He argued that the basic unit should not be neither large nor small. So they realized between village, taluk and district, they decided block should be the better institution to take care of the local problems. They also argued that the block was large enough for efficiency and economic distribution and small enough for sustaining a sense of unity. In fact, in Karnataka, even in other states also, the block was a very powerful institution. We had a block development officer on there. He was called as kingpin of administration. Very powerful officer those days. So most of the rural programs are implemented through TDBs those days. So this is the contribution of the Balwant Mehta committee to. It also says that such body, that is the body created at middle level, must not be constrained by too much control with the government. If you remember, we want devolution, not deconcentration. The committee also felt that there should not be any control by the higher governments over these local bodies. And the body must be constituted for 5 years through indirect elections from the village panchayats actually. 5 year term suggested. The function should work on development of agriculture because those days, because of failure of CDP program, the agriculture was a lot of prominence those days to implement, and promotion of local industries and others. And also services such as drinking water, road building, etc. were given to these panchayats. We had in those days village panchayat, Taluka Development Board. In other states, Taluk Panchayat Samitis were there. And some states had Jilla Parishad, like Rajasthan, Maharashtra, they had Jilla Parishad. And in Karnataka, we did not have Jilla Parishad, we had district development councils. As the committee also suggested that the higher level body, that is Jilla Parishad, would play an advisory role to the Taluka Development Boards and village panchayats. So there was no uniformity. You must also know to understand the 73rd Amendment very clearly. You must also know that how this process went. So you should also know that there was no uniformity during those days in constituting district level bodies. Some states went for Jilla Parishad, some states went for councils with no powers given to them. Then comes Santan Committee. In 1963, we had a Santan Committee, which was constituted exclusively for the finances. So, because those days panchayats had no proper financial resources, so the committee was constituted to study the finances of these panchayat institutions. It recommended that sanctioning of grants to PRS by state government, evaluate mutual financial relations between the three PRS. Nowadays, we talk about 16th Finance Commission, Karnataka has gone for 5th State Finance Commission, West Bengal has for 4th State Finance Commission. I think they study the finance of the Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, Gram Panchayat, and make recommendations, what percentage of amount grant should be given to these bodies. If you remember, the 14th Central Finance Commission gave a lot of, almost 45% of money to the panchayats. So that is the Santan Committee argued that the commissions, they need to constitute commissions, and the commission should create finances. That means to levy powers like land revenues and house taxes, as I said. People should not be burdened with too many demands as taxes. All grants and funding at the state should be mobilized and sent in a consolidated. You must be hearing the words Consolidated Fund of India, Consolidated State, like that resource. And the committee also suggested that so there is need to create a Panchayat Finance Corporation. Should be set up to look into the financial source of PRS. Now it is called a State Finance Commission, Union Finance Commission. The term is now not corporation. The term is now Union Finance Corporation. State Finance Corporations have been state government trust. Then comes Ashok Mehta Committee. This is a very important one. Actually, after this emergency, the Janata Party was created at the national level. So they identified, they constituted Ashok Mehta Committee. Ashok Mehta Committee identified a lot of weaknesses in then existing system. So he, in fact, actually evaluates these weaknesses in 3 phases. One is called the phase of ascendancy. That means from 1959 to 64, we had very good system panchayat based on Voluntary Mehta Committee. So there were institutions, village panchayats, taluka boards like that, they were functioning well. So he calls it as a phase of ascendancy. That is good period. The second phase, the phase of stagnation. That means between 65, 69, this entire system stagnated. No much progress. Nobody was bothering about panchayats. Neither central government, state government, they did not bother about the functioning institutions. They did not give enough powers, enough resources to institutions, so that people almost stagnated. The third phase, they call it as phase of decline between 1677 till it passed the committee. So almost said that since panchayats were decline. For instance, I'll give in Karnataka itself. So there were no elections to these bodies during 1967 to 77. There were no elections, 8-10 years. In Tamil Nadu, 15 years, no elections were there. In Uttar Pradesh, no elections. Nobody bothered about elections. I think the panchayats Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and they did not bother about constituting any bodies at all. So I think there was no almost decline. The Panchayat Raj and the downfall between this period. So Ashok Mehta committee identified three phases why panchayats failed in giving their in governance. So he suggested that instead of taluk, that block was suggested by the Balwant Mehta committee. Ashok Mehta committee felt that the district is a viable administrative instrument. He said district should be the first point of decentralization. He calls it viable unit because it is a good for planning, coordination, and its resource allocation should be district level. That's why he suggested for two-tier system of panchayat. One is mandal panchayat, that's village level. Mandal means a group of villages. You must remember Karnataka participants that in Karnataka we had Mandal Panchayat. It has Mandal group of villages. We used to have a 12,000 population. Mandal Panchayat. Lot of powers that we used to call Pradhan. Instead of Adhyaksha of Mandal, we used to call Pradhan of Mandal Panchayat and Jilla Parishad at the top. But that is a two-tier. Balwant Mehta says three-tier. That is Jilla Parishad, TD Taluk Development Boards and Panchayats. But whereas Ashok Mehta committee says a two-tier, Jilla Parishad at the district level, Mandal Panchayats at the village level. In between, Taluk Panchayat Samitis were there, that is left to the state government. In Karnataka, we had Taluk Panchayat Samiti, but no powers for this. It is only a coordinating body between Jilla Parishad and Mandal Panchayat. So he also suggested that SC/STs in the election to appear as the basis of the population. First time the reservation was given to SC/STs in the election process. He suggested four-year term instead of 5 years term, and again first time the political parties were allowed to participate in the election process. If I give just a glimpse of Karnataka here, Karnataka we had. Unfortunately, this Ashok Mehta government not implemented by any state government except Karnataka first. Karnataka first government to implement, state government implement Ashok Mehta recommendation, followed by Andhra Pradesh and some West Bengal also, West Bengal and Karnataka. Only two states only. During those period, we had reservation for women in Karnataka. 25% was there to women reservation, and we had Jilla Parishad, very powerful Jilla Parishads are there, Mandal Panchayats. First time the reservation was given to SCs, STs, and women in the Karnataka, 25%, based on Ashok Mehta. And political parties also participated in the election process. We used to call them as the golden phase of Panchayat Raj in India. Then comes there all GVK committee. It also talks about block level administration. He said the block development office should be a spinal cord of rural development because this committee was not very much important, but it played a role in giving some shape to the ongoing process at the block level administration. That's all the GVK committee. Then we have LMCV committee is very important because the first time the Gram Sabha was recommended by the LMCV committee. See, we find the Gram Sabha 73rd, first time actually. No other committees talked about Gram Sabha. The LMCV committee talked about Gram Sabha should be considered the base of a decentralized democracy. He almost introduced the Gram Swaraj of Gandhian Gram Swaraj first time in the decentralized process by creating Gram Sabhas at the village level. And they also suggested institutions of self-governance would facilitate the participation of the people. Then he also suggested for constitutional recognition of these bodies. That's why you find 73rd Amendment in the Constitution. He said that there should be a new chapter in the Constitution with regard to local government in India. He also talked about involvement of political parties in panchayat elections. LM Singhvi Committee, 1886. So coming to that 73rd phases, based on all these computerizations, I think also the experience of Karnataka and West Bengal experience. I think in 80s, the late Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi talked about introducing 64th Constitutional Bill, first time, based on Karnataka experience. You must be remembering we called a meeting of all deputy commissioners in the NIRD Hyderabad to discuss about this new amendment. But unfortunately, the bill was passed in Lok Sabha, but it was defeated in Rajya Sabha by one vote. By just one vote, it was defeated. So that's why it was not implemented immediately. And all these various suggestions, recommendations, and means of strengthening PIs were considered while formulating new constitutional amendment act. So then came in that is in 1992, Narasimha Rao government first time introduced this seventh amendment, and it's being to provide constitutional sanction to establish democracy at the grassroots level. I think this is the